All right, I'm looking at you. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't take any political advice from Adam Kinzinger, and I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. B, look, I've been hearing for 10 years that Trump's going to lose his base over this or that or the other. And for millions upon millions of Republicans who support what he's doing, who have lived through the last 10 years, they have learned to take Donald Trump for who he is, all in, all the time. And they are very appreciative of what he's doing for the country. They like what he's done on taxes. They like what he's doing on immigration. They like that he lives up to his campaign promises. But we're living through another moment here where a bunch of people are going to come out and make predictions about Trump and the base and this and that. And the reality is, it's not true. There are going to be a lot of people who don't like this statement, and then they're going to assess the state of American politics and assess the alternative and say, I knew what I was signing up for when I voted for him 3 times, and I'm going to ride it out.
I actually agree with Scott.
I
think the Republican base jumped the shark in 2016 when so many Christians, so many evangelicals, so many Catholics, so many people who said they didn't like Trump and heard him boast about sexual assault on video and on tape still went out and voted for him. So I think Trump has gotten away with and gets away with, as he himself said, he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they'd still support him. I think he's gotten away with setting a new standard that only he gets measured by. But I think that what's eroding.
But his approval ratings are spiraling.
But I don't think it's because of
it's not.
I don't think it's because of lack of empathy or inhumanity.
Yeah,
I think it's because
it's about the economy,
the tariffs.
Right.
I think it's because they look at what's happening in Venezuela and wonder how that's America first. I think it's Latinos. He's lost double digits with Latinos because I think they think he's gone too far on the deportation. They may like what he's done in the border, but they think he's gone too far on deportations and that it's cruel. And good people are getting dragged through the streets by masked men. So, I think it's a lot of things. I don't think it's about his lack of empathy over Rob Reiner.
So there's a couple of things about Trump's base. One, he ain't going to lose it. 2, it's non-transferable. Okay? So that's the thing that Republicans are having a hard time figuring out. Donald Trump forever, I say broke, but I will just, so we're not like content farming here. He reshaped the Republican Party. This Republican Party, since 2015, is being remade in Donald Trump's image. Now, what that party can't run on are things like family values. I mean, he has 5 kids by 3 baby mamas, right? What that Republican Party can't run on are things like evangelical. We are GOP, God's only party, because you have a president right now who doesn't have any empathy, who doesn't display those things, who doesn't have that Christ-like walk. So if you take those things together, it is a new type of politics.
Yeah,
it's a show.
Bakari, let me ask you a question. What 2-term president was transferable? Who did Barack Obama's popularity transfer to? Nobody. And in fact, the Democratic Party base across the country was decimated. Reagan transferred to Bush, and then he was a one-term president.
That's not true.
Who did transfer? Who did Clinton transfer to?
You do realize.
Who did Clinton transfer to?
You do realize that
Nobody.
Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump, right?
I know.
So to say that it was decimated.
Boy, she looked great in the White House, didn't she?
Well, she did. To say it was decimated is a gross overstatement.
Thousands of Democrats in lower elected office across the country lost during. He decimated the Democratic Party.
Who?
Obama. There was no transfer from him.
That has a totally. Okay. That's a different.
No, there are some specific signs. By the way, I think it's healthy to have a president where some members of his party on some issues can question him, whether you're Democrat or Republican, right? It's never good to have absolute fealty. But let me give you some specifics that show that he's not going to lose the base. You're right about that. But just for example, there was a poll the other day by Marquette University that showed that 48% of Republicans and 47% of independents don't like his prosecutions at a DOJ aimed at his political enemies. That's, again, almost half of Republicans don't like that. The boat strikes, right? You have leaders of Congress, Republican leaders, saying we want hearings, we want answers.
They support
That's
the boat
fair.
strikes.
But they want answers.
They support the boat strikes.
Okay, but they want answers. That's better. That's some accountability. That's some specifics. The Epstein files, we had a complete turnaround. Everyone voted for disclosure. Indiana, the state of Indiana, just refused to decline to gerrymander mid-district. So I'm not saying he's falling apart. I'm under no illusion about the strength of Donald Trump. But there are signs that this is not going to be absolute fealty.
That was brilliant. That was good research in depth. But you don't even have to go that far. You can go to elections that we just recently had. Republicans got mollywopped. Republicans lost the city of Miami.
By 20 points.
By 20 points. You're hemorrhaging Hispanic voters. So look,
Let me ask you this question. Does Trump care?
No, and that's the
In
biggest
other words,
problem.
he's not running for re-election. I think he
yeah.
cares.
That is the most brilliant point made tonight. I
disagree,
No,
actually.
he cares more about
Yeah,
his legacy. He wants to be known 100 years from now the way Teddy Roosevelt is known.
If he loses the House and or Senate, there's going to be what he hasn't had so far, which is oversight.
Didn't Clinton lose it?
Yeah, but the kind of things he's doing, the kind of things he's doing in this second term very quickly without any oversight, it would change dramatically if all of a sudden the control of the House
I
of
agree
Congress
with you,
changed.
and I think that's why he's
And I'll
doing
tell you
it.
another reason why I think his numbers are suffering. Today, December 15th, is the last day of the enrollment period for the health exchange. And there's a lot of Americans, Republican,
But to your point,
Democrat, and everything in between.
Because he knows you're right.
That don't
If he
know
loses,
what they're going to do, that are going to choose to go naked without health insurance, and that's going to cause people getting sicker and some people
He's running
dying.
for 2 years to do as much as he can in these 2 years. The Wall Street Journal had a big piece today about his executive power, how he's like pushing the Supreme Court out of the way, pushing the Congress out of the way, and he's just running right up the middle. It's called the imperial presidency, and he's going for it because I think you're right. I think if he loses in the midterms, that everything's going to change. But he's running the country for his legacy, so that 100 years from now, he's on that list of greatest presidents of the United States.
Or worst
Oh,
I think
presidents of the United States.
history is unique because the way that history looks at individuals, it usually takes their greatest character attributes and shines a light on them, right? People are usually looked more fondly, whether or not it's a rapper. You didn't even have to be that good of a rapper, but if you died a little while ago, they actually look at you a little different. I'm not about to name names because I'm in New York. And so people look at you a little bit differently about what type of artist you were. Right? If you were a politician, people look at you a little bit differently. And we all know that Donald Trump has the greatest envy of one person, which is Barack Obama. He envies Barack Obama. Well, that's fine. He envies Barack Obama, whether or not it's Nobel Peace Prizes, whether or not it's the swag, whether or not it's the way that he talked, whether or not it's his adoration, whether or not it's his Gallup approval rating today, all those things. But push that aside. He wants to be remembered in history as something that he was not. The problem that he has is that when you have missteps like this, although it may not mean anything today, it may not mean anything with this electorate, I do think history is going to frown upon somebody who doesn't have...
But you just said he changed the Republican Party. You said that. So
I didn't say for better.
But maybe he changed it for the next 50 years.
He did.
And okay, he will be remembered for
And
that.
that is a sad
The way Lawrence Taylor is remembered for changing the way football is
But Lawrence
played.
Taylor also did crack in the locker room before he played.
So what? He's still the great. NFL just rated him the greatest defensive player of all time. Period. Amen. End of story. 30 years after
I hear you, but it's always going to be the attribute, the asterisk. Barry Bonds is the greatest of all time.
If you think,
think
Donald Trump is going to get graded as one of the greatest presidents of all time, I'm going to begin to wonder if you're smoking crack.
Chip O'Neill never thought
No.
Ronald Reagan would be rated one of the greatest presidents of all time. And they got along and they did wonderful things together.
Love it or hate it, he is the most consequential political force in the modern era. He is the strongest party boss either party has ever seen. He got more votes each time he appeared on the ballot. He has people that will only vote for him. Now, that's something Obama had as well. He had people that would only vote for him. That puts you in a different realm. I mean, when you're that kind of and two-term presidents often have this, but you cannot deny, he is the most consequential political force of the modern era of either party.
I don't want to deny that but I do think consequential also has a negative connotation.
It can.
And I think that when
Every politician has detractors and supporters.
They're not detractors and supporters. There's impact on history, like Andrew Jackson. I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, like Trail of Tears. I mean, where are we going with this discussion about remembering who people were? And so I just think that Donald Trump will be remembered as somebody who was extremely consequential for reshaping the Republican Party. No doubt about it. But I do think that his moral and ethical lapses, whether or not it's before office or in office, will not go unnoticed. And I think I agree.
Bakari, he's reshaped far more than the Republican Party. He has gotten law firms to capitulate, media to capitulate, universities to capitulate.
You're right. I was a little too narrow in my scope.
Yes.
Has there ever been a president with moral and ethical failings before Donald Trump?
There hasn't been one with this. I mean, this is a gumbo.
Maybe one in your party?
This is a gumbo.
Just
This is a
asking.
gumbo of moral and ethical failures.
But you said
what
earlier, it's got to do with the transparency. We knew
But I
what
was
the
on a
Kennedy
roll.
brothers were doing.
As a child lawyer, I was on a roll.
All right, I
Making
apologize.
sense.
I'm sorry.
People were like, they were vibing with me.
All right,
okay?
all right.
I like it. No
As a
president-
trial lawyer, I know what to object to. Cut you down.
No president until Trump ever had a moral or ethical
No,
failing.
that's not what I
according
was
to-
saying.
Come on.
But Donald Trump has the gumbo of moral and ethical failures. I mean, look, if you
No,
wanna-
he's got. You know what he's got? He's got the gold medal that he
Yeah,
so
he
much
get- he
wants
should get the
of
Nobel
ethical
Prize for
breaches.
this.
All right, we're going to leave it there.
The
Breaking
Nobel Prize
news.
of
We're going to
corruption.
move on to the breaking news.